So we're here at Bitgravity, and who are you?
I'm Perry Wu. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bitgravity.
And just so people who don't know what Bitgravity does, what do you guys do?
We're the coolest CDN out there, content distribution network, which for simplicity's sake, we distribute video around the internet so that it actually plays really well.
And you're in the middle of the hottest area in the world right now, right? With video. We're doing video, everybody's doing video, right?
So it seems to be the trend.
You see the trend lines on all the charts is going up, 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 right?
Well, our growth looks like this. So if that's any indication, it's all a good thing. Better than this.
Yeah. What makes you guys different than like Akamai or some of the other CDNs out there?
Well, I mean, most CDNs out there are what I classify as service providers. They basically take off-the-shelf equipment, they go buy the software, install the software on these one-use servers, and they rack them and stack them in data centers around the country. We're really a technology company. If you go to the back room, it's a bunch of engineers, not a bunch of guys that necessarily just install software. And so we took a different approach. We just said, look, if we think the internet is heading in the direction that we believe it will, then we have to start thinking about all the advancements that are required for the applications in 4 to 5 years from now. So we built stuff from the bottom up to be capable of handling what we sort of term as interactive broadcasting, which is something that seems like sort of a fancy term, but I think in the future it's just going to become a reality.
Yeah. What do you mean by interactive? Because I know what interactive means to me, but what does it mean?
Well, think about this. If you go back and you look at television, right? Yeah. What was television? Television initially started off as filming a guy reading the weather report for the farmers, right? Sat in a suit, did the same thing he did on the radio. All they did was repurpose content onto television. They call that television. Well, the endpoint from where that starting point is and the end point today is just vastly different. Yep. And so the starting point for the internet is we're taking content off of television or doing short clips we're putting on the internet. The problem is that doesn't really inherit any of the qualities of the internet, because it inherits the quality of broadcast media today, which is cable and satellite. But the problem is when you have a two-way communication vehicle, you're losing half of the benefits of the fact that the end user can actually interact with the content. So we think that in the future we're going to start seeing a lot more engaging content. In fact, there'll be a difference between sort of watching passive experiences and active experiences. Yeah. And the active experience is going to be, picture a concert at 360 degrees where you get to pick on the aspect ratio that you want to watch, or the person in the crowd that you want to watch, or the drummer or the guitar player. I mean, it's a lot more engaging. I always use golf as an analogy. I mean, I personally fall asleep in front of the television watching golf just because it's a boring experience. But Tiger Woods pops up, and I want to watch it. So if you could watch Tiger Woods at every single hole, that would be an interactive broadcast experience, and that's where we think that's where the innovation really starts playing in.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to watch a camera that's on Tiger Woods and just watch that, so
yeah,
I can hear what he's talking about to his caddy, or experiencing what he's experiencing as he walks through the crowd, which might not make for interesting TV on mainstream TV, but would be interesting to watch.
Sure, he's sweating bullets and saying it in front of his caddy.
Yeah. How did you get into this? Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. We were talking off camera about you and I grew up just a couple miles apart.
We're local boys.
Yeah,
I probably threw toilet paper at your house when I was a kid or something.
You wouldn't be the only one.
I have somewhat of an eclectic background, albeit, to be honest, I think it's really suitable for what I'm doing today. I've spent half of my career in technology, the other half of my career as in technology being as a as an entrepreneur, the other half is sort of a venture capitalist, which gives me sort of a unique perspective. In fact, if you go back, it's pretty much been startup company, venture, startup company, venture, startup company, venture. One is doing a startup company is it's exhausting, it's intensive. I mean, there's no, you don't rest. I mean, you're in at a battle, and so I've always felt that having a little bit of break in between has always been a good thing. And my personal belief is don't do a startup unless you're passionate about it, right? I even had a point in my career where I had a term sheet on a deal that I was going to do. I was an EIR at a firm, and
that's entrepreneur in residence.
Entrepreneur in residence.
Yeah. Silicon Valley lingo.
Sorry.
There's some people
for the
watching
general
you.
public. EIR is an entrepreneur in residence. And literally at the last minute, I pulled the plug and decided not to do it after going through the whole work of spending months and conceiving the plan. And in the reality, I just found myself not that compelled about the actual project, and knew that if I was going to commit 4 to 6 years of my life on this thing, that I wasn't in sort of the right mindset to do it. Now, the nice thing is that I did have the ability to stay within the industry of being an entrepreneur by doing venture, but venture provided really sort of a whole different perspective to me that I think is important, which is just, how do you deal with management teams, boards, the investment community, how do you see things through sort of the investor's lens. Yep. The Rolodex has been invaluable, plus just sort of the ability to look at thousands of companies and be able to see what's in innovative technology, what's not. So by the time I showed up here, immediately I knew whether this, gutturally, whether is this a good investment for me to stake my personal career on. But the other is, I spent 6 years looking at communications technologies. I spent 6 years networking with the top technologists, the top marketing people, the top salespeople in this specific area. The other benefit I had was I was involved in a startup called Empath Interactive back in the mid-90s. And Empath was a cool company of its time. It was a CDN for multiplayer games. And the only challenge we had back then is no one wanted to pay for anything on the internet, but we had 8 million subscribers playing fast twitch games like Quake over the internet using dial-up modems. So the fortunate thing was that we made a lot of mistakes in the network that we built back then. It was expensive, it wasn't fault tolerant, it crashed quite a bit, and now all of a sudden we enter sort of a new age where 2 years ago video was just kind of on the verge of starting to happen, and that was sort of the bet. Would video really sort of take off in the internet and become a big thing? My prediction was absolutely. I knew what the technology architecture we'd have to build would be, but really sort of lacked really a core technology guy to really sort of take some of the base concepts, actually turn it into something real. That's not something I can do. And that was sort of the premise for what we're doing today, but it's sort of that experience, the wealth of knowledge, plus the relationships, and sort of the confidence of knowing what could be done, what couldn't be done, given unlimited resources, really sort of formed the foundation of the company. Now, as an example, the preparation, we just spent a lot of time thinking through all the problems before really sort of working on this project. So the time that I had engaged the CTO to the time that we actually started working on it was probably about a 5 or 6 month effort.
Tell me what the state of the video art is today, right now, and where do you think it's going to go over the next 2 or 3 years? Are you reading the same thing that I'm expecting a lot of money to come in from the mainstream TV, and because advertisers want to be on the internet where they can really understand who's watching and how long they're watching and what they're watching, where on normal TV they don't have that kind of demographic, and plus the viewers are moving from you know, old school watch Channel 5 to new school watch,
right.
You know, well, we were talking about Lost online, you know, or watch Tom Green online, or some of these other places.
It's interesting. I mean, you have really a different mix of companies and entrepreneurs coming to the table right now in the market. So if you look at mainstream media, I mean, what are they doing? They're basically extending the brand to an audience that already, I mean, to some extent, their view of the world is, gee, I'm cannibalizing my audience, right?
Yeah.
But
like the Hulus and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's divided camps. I think some people think, okay, if you're at home, you're going to watch and this is the camp I'm in, you're going to watch content on the biggest screen possible, which is going to be your 50, you know, for you probably 60 or 70 inch television. But, you know, I mean, it's, you know, any technology junkie out there is still going to sit and watch on a big screen because it's just a better experience. But, you know, despite having, you know, 5 computers in the house, if you're at work and you want to watch something, you're going to watch it on your, you know, laptop or your screen. If you're at the train station, you're going to watch it on your cell phone. So does that cannibalize an audience? No, it actually sort of augments what exists out there by providing accessibility. I mean, you know, you heard sort of the information at your fingertips. I mean, now we're sort of entering the age of video at your fingertips, right? I mean, it's literally like front and center wherever you go. And that actually, I think, will only sort of enhance the advertising market. I think the problem is any sort of mainline business is just going to move slow. So unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of dollars flow from traditional media to today's sort of internet media, but it's got to happen. I mean, as you said, they're going to go wherever the eyeballs are, right? The brands are going to follow wherever the people are. And the reality, if you look at the trends, is more and more people are going onto the internet to watch their video, and in a way that they want to watch it. They want to watch it on demand. They want to watch, you know, real-time content that's not on television, which really sort of brings up.
Leo Laporte is out there, and you know, Tom Green's out there, and Chris Pirillo are out there doing live video shows from their bedrooms, right? With that's very low-cost equipment, but getting pretty sizable. I mean, sizable for me, but not sizable yet for Lost.
Well,
but you know, the audiences are going up.
They're going up, and that really sort of brings out the second group that I think is really sort of going to take advantage of the internet. Because if you take a look at the first group, I mean, they're sort of restricted by their content as to, you know, what markets the content can play in. I mean, it's, you know, cable and satellite are regional, limited businesses, but for the first time, we have a network that is global, right, and completely open. So now all of a sudden you have a guy like Tom Green, and Tom's saying, well, look, I can go to MTV, have a staff of 150 people, and earn a nice salary there, or I could build my own equity in something, broadcast to the entire globe, so a larger market opportunity, and start growing my fan base and start growing, you know, my own equity in this asset that he's building. And you know, it hasn't been around for that long yet. You know, the numbers of his, you know, subscriber base or his, you know, his viewer base continues to go up and up and up. And yet, rather than having, you know, a big, you know, multi-million-dollar production, he's doing out of his room with 8 cameras, and he's got one guy there plugging away and changing the views of the perspective. And he does a terrific job. And so that's the one thing, is that the internet is terrific, and we've seen it over and over again at basically dislocating sort of the walled garden and making distribution sort of effectively, you know, frictionless, right? Yeah. And that's what's really, really cool about some of the things we do. We take a lot of the costs, the startup costs, down to a point where an independent person can build their own asset, broadcast on the internet, and all of a sudden have millions of users.
Give me an idea of the cost. Cause I remember when we were at PodTech, when we started out, we were paying even more than $1 per gigabyte. And over the last 2 years, that cost has really gone down to How much for a
show
like ours?
We're not in the same club, so I'm not sure you have the secret handshake. No, it's getting low. I mean, we're getting down to the point where extremely high volumes and people are down in the single digit pennies, right? Whereas that would have been unheard of a year ago.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, those are the largest customers on the internet, and so. But still, I mean, we're now starting to approach levels where advertising is probably at a break even for a lot of companies, and two things have to happen. I mean, one is, well, probably a few things. One is sort of more distribution vehicles need to occur for that content company or independent content company to get their content in front of more people.
Yeah.
The ad rates need to kind of come up, but we're being pushed down by the Google ad rates, right? $2, $3 for video content. I think there's quality content also needs to go up. And then, of course, you always want your costs to go down to sort of meet up with a business model where the revenues exceed the cost. So, there's a lot of things happening. I mean, I think in comparison to, to your original question of how do I view the video market and where it's going in the business model, I mean, we went through a cycle that was called, the internet bubble. Remember, it was all about e-commerce companies.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about a similar thing. We sort of probably overfunded a number of video companies. But I do think that there's a fundamental difference. One is on the commerce side of the fence, never in the early days, there weren't necessarily the capital efficient economies that existed to launch a business, get to break even fairly quickly. However, on the video advertising space today, there are a lot of companies, they launch a site, they get the profitability really quick, they don't spend a lot of money, right? I also think that back then, people were sort of tight on whether they're going to spend any money on the internet. Today, you see people spending, I mean, as an example, having been in the business of video games or multiplayer games, we had a hard time squeezing $5 out of someone per month, and now people are paying multiple subscriptions and multiple services, and they each cost $20 a month.
Yes.
So there's a big transition from here to where we are today, and I think that the business models have still yet to have been discovered. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got big sort of video portal sites that are all ad-based, that are trying to continue to grow, push the CPM rates up. And on the other side of the fence, you have companies like MLB.com that are probably doing more revenues than anybody else out there.
Yeah.
And
hundreds of millions of revenues.
what I heard, they heard is in the hundreds of millions, right? And their model's pretty interesting. They basically charge for perishable content. The stuff that's delayed is free, but if you want to watch a game that day, you got to pay for it. And there's going to be so many different other examples of people that figure out how to get someone to pay for, a live feed so that grandma can watch their grandkids play.
Well, are you going to see enterprises come to you to do their, like I know Microsoft has these company meetings, right? And they have employees all over the world that they have to put video out to. Seagate even has the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are you going to see that kind of?
It was somewhat ironic. Phone call earlier. We got a call from one of the large hardware companies that actually has video products, asking if they could use our service to broadcast their vice president over the airwaves so that the company could actually see the broadcast. We asked them, well, why weren't they using their own stuff? They quoted that the startup costs were too high for them to use it. So you use our stuff as an example for a live feed. We're talking less than $1,500, $1,000 machine plus some software, and that's pretty inexpensive to do a high quality, infinitely scalable live event. And that just a year ago you couldn't do that. You could go out and buy racks of equipment and expensive stuff, but we're just sort of on this forefront again of we're going to enable some pretty interesting entities, and I wish I could say like this is what it's going to look like, but as you know, something's going to come out, and it's going to be some independent content developer, and it's going to blow away what anyone thought was imaginable, right? And we've seen that. It's just a matter of time. So, again, I mean, what World of Warcraft is doing, the multiplayer games, basically created that, that whole industry, and that's what started it, right? I think on the e-commerce side of the fence, that was, probably, Amazon that really sort of created that industry. I really don't know what the correct business models are going to be, or the most, favorable companies out there are going to be, because I think we're still just so early in the market. I mean, YouTube started
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
I don't even know if it was that long, right?
Yeah.
So we're still
short period of time.
Short period of time, right? So that's why we're so excited. I think our job as a company is to really sort of bring down as many barriers as possible, so that people have the infrastructure to go do stuff. And that's where, everyone says, commoditization is bad. Commoditization is a good thing. There have been a lot of companies out there that have flourished in, competitively priced markets, but it's only because the market is, doubling every year, right? And that's where we're getting. We're just sort of increasing economies of scale. We're getting more efficient. Prices are coming down because costs are coming down. But that just means that the market is becoming a real, a real
vibrant
industry.
place.
Yeah, and that's where, 2 years ago, or a year ago, I would have walked into any one of the major, studios and said, hey, we have one of the first high definition products out there. What do you think? And they would have said, high def. We don't even care about high def. It's not important to us, right?
Now we care about getting clips up on YouTube.
We want to get clips up there on YouTube, right? Now we go into that same customer and they say, we would go in and we talk to them about live, right? What's their response? We can't even think about about live. High def is at front and center on the top of our plate, So just the mind shift change in 6-month periods are, they go from here to here, and that's where you sit back and say, okay, well, I'm a technology-oriented company. It is to some extent my job to predict, what's out here, right? I got to paint this crazy picture that people might think I'm a little bit nuts about, but I guarantee that if I showed you my roadmap, what I had on a slide 2 years ago is actually playing out as we speak, right? And it's not really, in fact, it hasn't changed. In fact, we're not off at all. If I got anything wrong, it's probably the time scale. It's actually been a lot more accelerated.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks, by the way, we're using Bitgravity for our WorkFest show. So
terrific.
Live on Friday mornings at 10 a.m.
Well, I'm sure it'll be good.
Well, it is good. It's good because it comes through Bitgravity.
It'll be great.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.